The VC Project.
So we could make this entire podcast about guns. That would be very fun. I also apologize. I got to open my soda. We're also recording this podcast over our lunch break because we're actually working and kicking butt today. And I don't get to use this sound effect often, but it is awesome. And welcome, Mr. Chuck Espinzoa.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Dude, I've been wanting to have you on as a podcast guest for a very long time. I did not for a number of reasons. One, because you don't come to visit, every other week. It's every couple of months. But secondarily to that, I feel like it was cheating having you come on early, pulling that card to have, we're using a lot of our friends and resources because it's easy.
It's
right?
like pulling a joker out of the deck.
It's the low-hanging fruit when we pull of our friends on the podcast. You're kind of a natural at it. I kind of wanted to work up a little bit and get some other guys on. So appreciate you driving all the way from Virginia, 12 straight hours overnight just to do this podcast.
Yeah, it was a hoot. I like driving at night. There's no traffic, and I only hit one spot where there's like a tractor trailer decided to just block all the lanes of a toll road.
And you did not break down like I did when I drove home from your house last time. So that's a plus. I apologize to anybody who's going to be listening to us eating as we're doing this, but we have to leave here immediately after this podcast. And that's the only time we've
driving through the night like that. I've done it. There's times where it gets tough. Was there a point in that drive last night to where you were like, I need a 20-minute nap, I need an hour nap, or did you just truck on right through?
Oh, no. So I time it out pretty good. I enjoy driving, and I drive most of the places I go. If it's within a 12 to 14 hours, I'll drive. I'll leave at like 5 or 6 at night, get there at 5, 6, 7 in the morning. But I do it enough now. It gets to a point where I know, hey, if I keep going, it's going to be dangerous. So, you start like kind of nodding off or weaving, or you start shaking your head doing that. Okay, I got to stop. So I'll find a rest stop and I'll pull in, use the restroom, grab some water, and then I'll lean my seat back. And so my new car is a diesel, so I could leave it running and it doesn't burn a lot of gas. It's very fuel efficient. So I leave it on, it was like 22 degrees last night when I stopped, and it was nice and toasty in my car. And take a 20-minute nap, 30-minute nap, set the phone for an alarm. And
what time did you come walking into my house this morning?
Well, 5:15.
Yeah, I was still asleep. I
thought
I heard the door open.
Reset. I've been there. I'm driving 2 through the night, and that 20-minute reset is all you need.
Yeah. And it's just get up, and it's not enough to put you into like deep sleep, but just enough to get you over the edge of like I stopped at like 4, and okay, it's prudent to take 30 minutes and crash, and I allow that in my timeline. I always make sure that if I'm going to be driving and I'm going to be doing 12 hours like that, I'll put in nap time. I'll schedule nap time.
This is officially. Now, I'm pretty lazy when it comes to this podcast. I do very little prep work. Pat does a little bit more than I do.
Well, you got sandwiches.
I have not done a single bit of prep for today. I can tell you that I could probably make this into a 4-hour podcast without even thinking about it.
Which way are we going with this? Is this going to be education-based? Are we going to do the same type of stuff we're doing now?
I don't really know.
Where are we taking this?
What do you want to take this?
I know where I want to take it once we get warmed up.
A couple of weeks ago, I already told the Mexico story.
Oh, my.
That was a different podcast. Didn't I told that story, right?
I think so. Refresh my memory.
Remember little Jerry?
Oh, maybe not. No.
When him and I went to a cockfight in Mexico. I know I told the Amsterdam story about you.
Did you tell that on the podcast? I've heard the cockfight story outside of that, but
no, maybe. I don't remember. I could tell it again later. I did tell the story, 2 weeks ago when we had Tim Albright on about that time that dude tried to like jump Jerry or whatever, and you got in the fight in Amsterdam. The hot cops with the handcuffs came in the little clown car. Man, that was a good one.
I can already tell this is going to be an edited episode.
No, I don't edit episodes.
I don't know what it is. Like, most of the time, so when we were at ISC a few weeks ago, right, there was a lot of people getting rolled, like mugged, people got.
I heard Barcelona is way worse than Amsterdam for that.
It is.
You're
It
talking
is.
about the attendees were actually
Yeah.
having
Yeah,
problems?
people got like rolled, like somebody, come up to you, give me money, and they have like something. And so I was making a joke, like I'd never get mugged, right? I mean, that's just not a good idea. I'm not a big dude.
You can defend yourself,
but yeah,
and if not, your daughter will.
yeah. If not, my daughter will jump in, jujitsu those guys.
When we were in Amsterdam, somebody tried to mug Marcus,
Yeah, that was funny.
and he busted him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You ever seen Marcus was holding them up and their feet were like dangling. So anyway, so we go to, I drove to Atlanta a couple weeks ago. We're doing one of the shows for Aurora and come out of my hotel room. And just as I was talking about, I never get mugged. Somebody tried to mug me.
No way.
But
fantastic.
it was like this homeless guy, and he was real small, right? He wasn't a big dude, and he was kind of disheveled, and he had like a shiv, but it was like a plastic spoon. And so he comes out and he's like, "Hey man, like I need your wallet." And I looked down, and the first thought was going through my mind is this guy serious? And I started to giggle, and he's like, "No man, I need your wallet." So he's holding the shiv out like that, and I went rack, and I wrapped him on the back of the hand with my knuckles, and he like dropped his old plastic KFC spork, right? And he was like, "Ow, ow," and I'm like, man, that's not gonna work out. Like that's just, I mean, I'm
Did you leave it
giggling.
at that, or did you?
Well,
How to middle
it gets
a bit
better.
more?
So, most of the time when I'm anywhere where I carry my firearm, I carry my firearm. I mean, I concealed permit. I'm trained. I train constantly, and I'm very, very judicious about, if I have to employ it. I know the laws. I do a lot of training. So I was like, buddy, that's not going to work out. And he's like, oh man, I'm just, I'm hungry. And I kind of opened my shirt and I said, that's the wrong thing to do. That could have ended a whole different
Were you
way.
carrying?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
And he was like, he just started to kind of like tear up. And he's like, man, I'm just hungry. And I'm like, well, let's go get a sandwich. So he's rubbing the back of his hand. So we go down and like grabbed a sandwich, and he is telling me I live in a tent around the corner. I mean, you go into a big city and we're always there for shows and, people pulling out all the stops, and there's a lot of money thrown at places, but still there are tons of homeless people. And with, I'm not going to get political or anything, but it's just a fact that more people are pouring into the country and they're giving people resources. And so some people that were getting some resources aren't. And he was telling me like the Y was letting him stay there, but now they limit him to like 30 days, stay there for free. And then they start charging him like $16 a day. And he didn't have $16. So we took him and he got him a sandwich and some soup and some coffee. We just sat down, chatted for a little while. And then, so I walked him back to his tent. He had a little tent. It was cold rain. I said, all right, man, I'm going to give you all the money in my wallet. I gave him I had $7 on me. I literally just had $7, 7 ones, right? Where was I? So,
He ain't getting that Gucci wallet though. That's for sure.
no.
What a story! What a way to start the
You want
pod.
to know where I get
Yeah,
my
man.
taste? You want to know where I get my taste and stuff? It's from him.
All right, all right. So you
So-
got the Prada jacket.
I don't think you got a Prada jacket.
What?
He's rolling some Gucci and some Louis every now and then.
Oh, yeah.
Sport a few. You got the rollie on today?
No, I'm Apple watching.
Yeah, I didn't. Do
Ever since I moved to the farm, I've been less Gucci and more Carhartt.
Yeah, that's true too.
I've, it's when you get up in the morning, grab a shower, and you put all your clothes on. Like, first thing I do is go up and grab a couple bales of hay to put in the horse. I come in.
It still blows my mind because right before he bought the farm, he was pondering picking up the penthouse down in the towers downtown Peoria and move it here. He was debating actually doing that. And I think the biggest thing that kept you from doing it was your daughter.
It was 100%.
And then the exact opposite happened, and he bought a farm.
That's quite the opposite.
Yeah.
Sounds like, or from the videos I've seen, it's working out pretty well down there. though.
Man, place is great. You never realize how much like working in the Beltway, doing AV in the DC metro area. It's mostly government, top secret stuff, cleared stuff. And we're not like secret squirrel in it. You just have to have a clearance to get into these places because everybody does. And it's stress and pressure and high speed and everything is, it's Beltway bandit in it. And then there gets to be a point in time, and this was before COVID. This was before everybody was like, I got to get out of the city. Like, life changes happen, and I'm like, I'm out. I travel for work. I was teaching with the VIX at the time, and I was on the road 2 to 3 weeks a month. So when I got home, I didn't want to answer a phone.
But you got that right before COVID.
Oh yeah, I bought it in November of 19. And then I remember I came out for New Year's Eve, and I was coming here for New Year's Eve, and I was going to be going straight to Phoenix to Jeremy L. Sesser's to do some training. And when I was here, the day after or the day before New Year's, they called and said, "Hey, we're canceling." And then we went to Amsterdam, and it was the last ISE in Amsterdam.
We partied so hard that New Year's here in Peoria. I think that was well, you met Sam and Kathy.
Yeah.
And they were at the ball game. So then we partied with them all night back when they owned the old place. And and then we went to Amsterdam like 2 weeks later.
Yeah. And I remember Marcus and I are sitting in the bar in Amsterdam. We get on the plane, and then we get off the plane, and we're going through customs, and it's like something's weird. And they're like, "Yeah, you're lucky. They started shutting down the airports when you guys were in the air." And we're like,
I am convinced that I am ground zero, patient 1 for the state of Illinois for COVID.
You were sick there for a while,
"You were
right?
rough."
As soon as we got back from Amsterdam, this is February of 2020.
Mm-hmm.
The Rona had just been announced. We had literally spent a week in Amsterdam with a lot of people from China,
From all over
the world.
Yeah.
And then we all went back home, and I was so sick. And I remember going to prompt care, and all the news was breaking, and it was starting to get really bad. Everybody was starting to freak out because nobody knew what was going on. I go to prompt care, and the first question they always ask, have you been outside the country in the past 30 days? And I'm like, oh man. I go, yes.
I've been out in the last 30 minutes.
When? I go, about a week ago. They said, where are you at? I said, Amsterdam. They said, okay, the Netherlands is not that bad for COVID, so it's not a big deal. I go, but, and they go, what? I go, I was also at a trade show where like 50% of the people are Chinese. So she goes, oh, and I'm immediately expecting people in hazmat suits to come out for them to stick me into a trailer. Like, she goes, take some Tamiflu and go home. I go home, take the Tamiflu. It makes me 1,000 times worse. Okay. I can't function. I can't move. I am out for a week. It took me another 2 weeks to like regain any kind of like energy. And of course, there's no testing. There's no nothing like that until the following year. I actually get COVID. I test for it. Same exact symptoms. So I know for sure that I had it, and I was one of the first.
It's just looking back at that time, I'd never been through anything remotely like that. You guys have, been through some more things in the lifespan, but for that, it was so weird. I was still playing at the time. I was with the Marlins, and we get in one day, and there's like 150 guys in spring training. They bring us all in, and they're like, we're having a meeting with a doctor today. So he comes up and does this giant presentation on what COVID is. I'm like, I have no idea what.
Did he put the rubber glove on?
I would love to see though whatever that first report was. I wish I would have it on file just to actually compare it to like all the stuff that came out in the months to come, because things were changing so fast. And they're like, we don't think this is going to be a big issue. 2 days later, they shut down spring training. We were all driving home.
Did you play when the stadiums were empty? Did you do any of that?
So
was that weird?
Was later in August. Yeah. So
Wow.
Baltimore, Camden Yards in Baltimore.
Mm-hmm.
So when I first got called back, because I didn't make the initial roster back with the Marlins, but then COVID hit the team. Like 15 guys got hit. So I was literally on a boat, and they called me. They're like, hey, are you ready to go? I'm like, yeah, I just got done training, which I did the day before. So I go from the boat that day to the airport to Florida. Then they send me to Camden Yards. So I'm a backup that first day. So I don't even I go warm up. You're like a just in case guy. And then I go in the stands. And this is before they figured out that they needed to pipe in like crowd noise.
So it's dead quiet.
I was one of 4 people in the stadium watching a baseball game.
So,
I fell asleep, as you can imagine, in the middle of the city there. Just
to relate that to what we do, not because I'm trying to bring it back, but whenever we do streaming systems for churches, which we do a lot of, and we have in the past couple of years, I always tell everyone in the church, we have to hang a microphone just up and just pick up the noise, and it mixes nowhere other than into the stream, because it's very disconcerting for anybody watching the stream to not hear that background noise, just air, right? So people don't understand that. That's a whole other level on a national broadcast, right? Where you're not getting that. So,
And so for that first week, there was nothing. And then the game was dead, low runs. Nobody had any type of energy. Then all of a sudden you start pumping in that crowd noise and music.
did they pump that into the stadium itself?
Oh yeah.
Oh, see, I'm just talking about the
that would be
broadcast.
awesome.
Oh, you have to have like that real, because you
Yeah.
hear everything and you
That
don't
makes
realize
sense.
how much crap the
Oh,
other
yeah.
team talks until there's no other sound. You just hear everything they say, and there's a lot of crap that's talked that you don't typically hear.
So we could literally bullshit for hours here.
Yeah, we gotta. I'm sorry, that's my bad.
So okay. So Chuck's got the farm. Give us. I'll tell you what. Let's take it a step further back. Let's not go into too much detail, but start us out. How you got into AV, what you were doing, kind of how you morphed out of the Marine Corps and what you were doing there, and into professional AV, and then working for a VIX. Get us up. Give us the 5-minute, 10,000 foot. How did you get from point A to point B?
Okay, so I started off in high school, like a lot of other of our, AV professionals doing DJing and setting up small stuff. But I was actually involved with the musicians union, and so I started doing small gigs, just rolling cables and learning stuff from the old sound guy, right? The old gray-haired ponytail dudes wearing concert shirts, and little by little started learning things like gain structure, how to do monitors, and so go through high school. Right after high school, join the Marine Corps, going in the Marine Band. And in the Marine Band, it was
What'd you play in the Marine Band?
so a lot of stuff. My main MOS was a trombone player, a horrible trombone player. And I played guitar and bass and a bunch of other things. So in the Marine Band, in the field units, they don't have like a rock band and that's all you do. You play trombone and then you pick up a guitar and play guitar. So the unfortunate thing is they didn't have trained sound techs, trained sound engineers or anything. So like if you were a French horn player that didn't play guitar, they stuck you behind the soundboard. So the sounds was usually awful. I mean, imagine just getting a tech, right? Rando tech, and sticking them behind a soundboard and going, go for a professional ensemble. So I knew a little bit from being in the union, doing gigs, and when I went to school, we had a little bit of sound in our school bands and stuff, and so I was playing guitar and just feedback through the monitors was awful. The standard, like it sounded like just a bar gig, and so we took a break, and I'm like, I'm a Lance Corporal. I'm like, Sergeant, can I no respect or no disrespect intended. Can I fix that? And he was like, please do. Please, if you know how to do that, do that. So I went and did a line check and everything, got everything going. And then the band started playing and they're like, whoa, that sounds great. They're like, great, you're now the sound guy. So from
How
then
old are you at this point?
18.
Okay.
So I was the sound guy from that point on. And I'd done gigs, when I was in high school, like paid gigs, worked on stages, just rolling cables, gaffing cables, doing cable monkey stuff, part of the union. And so I was the head sound guy now at 18 for the Marine Band, for that band. And we had an officer that was really good with sound, but he was one of the conductors and stuff. So he kind of tutored me and mentored me and got me into different gear and things like that. And went on to advanced schooling in Norfolk, went out to Hawaii. I was the sound guy. Right when I got there, you're the sound guy. And that was a big rock band type of thing. So kept going. After I did my career in the Marine Corps, I got out and like I could do two things. I could shoot and teach shooting, and I can do sound and AV stuff. So I started doing my own company, sound stuff, and a couple of my buddies and I opened a sound company and just kept doing stuff. And I was married at the time, and my wife said, you need a real job. Like you work at nights in bars. That's not a job. And I'm like,
Is this wife number one?
no, this is number 3.
Oh, okay.
Wife number 1 was way before then. And no, the 3.
Sorry, I had to call you out on that.
3 of 4. So she said, you need a real job. You need a 401k and insurance. And I'm like, well, I don't know what to do. And so my buddy said, hey, we should try this AV thing. Oh, it's just, we know how to solder. We solder all the time. We make cables. I mean, we know how to do construction. We're, We were the guys that people came to when the sound crew, because we're mechanically inclined and stuff. So when people's cars are broken, they would say, "Hey, can you help me fix my brakes or whatever?" Yeah, sure. So I just went out. I didn't know this was a job, an AV tech, like installing speakers and stuff. And I just built the systems and then took them down. I'd never left them. So it was kind of nice. It was only 8 hours a day. I didn't have to lug 80-pound speakers and like pack up at 3 o'clock in the morning and drive 500 miles to the next gig.
And the pay is better.
At that time,
Nowadays it's better.
well, I owned the company, so
yeah, okay.
but now
The hours just sucked.
yeah, the hours were awful. It was awful, but we liked doing it, and so I got that job and figured out it was kind of cool. But the one thing I figured out, so being an AV tech in a small company, in the Marine Corps, if you did a job, there was a book that told you how to do the job, standard operating procedures. And for every like rank, you had certain metrics you had to hit, right? And so if you needed to know what any job was, you could read the book. Well, there was no book for AV techs. And that was one of the things that always got me. So if you had like a senior tech who is a joker and his or her DB9s are crap, then your DB9s are going to be crap. So I was like, man, there needs to be a thing. So my GM, Bob Thornton at the time, said, hey, you should look into Infocom, get your CTS. You know, they do a lot of stuff like that, you know, instructional manuals and schooling and stuff. So I got my CTS and kept going, went to another company. Well, I was at the other company. They said, hey, you're really good with teaching the guys. We want to send you to install school, get your CTSI. So I went and got my CTSI. Did pretty good on it. They asked me to come back and adjudicate. They said, you're in the area, CTSI, you know what you're doing. So I helped them start adjudicating. And while I was there, they said, hey, we're working on an instruction manual, like a how-to manual for techs. Do you want to help us do that? I was like, oh my God, this is a dream come true. This is the thing I wanted to do, is make the SOP. And that was the install handbook. And I worked on that with Bill Natras and Wes Warner and a bunch of guys and, you know, the Maltesers. And I didn't know it at the time, but like, I didn't know who Bill Natras was. I just saw his name all over the place. And I was like, yeah, Bill Natras guy is really involved.
He gets his name all over the place.
He does. He's very, you know, and he shares his knowledge and educates people, and, you know, somebody to look up to. And took a few of his classes, and Wes Warner, Travis Lisk, you know, the Maltesers, all guys that have.
Was Travis teaching back then? Really?
Yeah. Travis was adjudicating with us.
Wow.
And these are all guys who've been around the block. And here I am, like, I'm just an install tech, right? But I just wanted to be productive and help out the industry. So the book came out. It was really good, good publication. It helped out a lot of people. And that eventually evolved into like the CTSI exam guide. If you kind of look at the evolution of how things went, the exam guide took a lot of the content from that book. And figured out, I always tell techs I talk to, you know, when I hear, man, what can I do? I'm just a tech. Like, you can change a world. You can do whatever you want. Volunteer, get involved, learn stuff. When you learn stuff, pass that knowledge on. You know, they need the input. You know, the industry needs the input of the technician. We don't get it a lot. We get the input of sales and project management because those guys are salary and they can step away for a minute. Techs are billed hourly, so sending them to Infocom, it's a little expensive, right? So I had really good support system, and just kept doing that, and saw the need for certification. Like, I wanted to get involved with certification, teaching, item writing on the exam, and
well, this is right about the time that they started to make it ANSI accredited.
ANSI accredited,
the certification. So
we they said we need item writers. Well, I'd just been adjudicating this hands-on exam. And so one of the things, it was funny, I was actually against standardized tests for the CTSI. This CTSI is a hands-on test. You're making connectors, you're making cables, you're building a rack. How are you going to do that on a computer? And so I'll never forget, we had a big meeting. We're all yelling at each other. Half the table was like hands-on, half the table was like standardized. And then Melissa Taggart came in and she said, she asked me, do you interview people for a job? And I said, yeah, you know, I hire sound guys, I sound techs, I hire technicians. She said, okay, you're going to hire a sound tech. How do you know if they're a good tech or not? I'm like, well, I ask them questions, and, you know, I can't take everybody out and have a mix, but I can ask them a few questions. And I'm like what? So I asked her a question. She said, write that down. And I went, you got me. So then the challenge was, it's my job to figure out those questions that you can ask. And I don't know, did you hear I'll ask you 3 questions to figure out. So questions like that, what knowledge and skill based together questions are going to enable you to figure out if you could do this job or not. And so I was an item writer for many, many years, and served on the steering committee. And that's actually when I met Jeremy. We have a mutual friend,
Mr. Lip.
Jeff Lip.
Mr. Jeff Lip, my one of the best instructors I ever had in college at Columbia College in the acoustics department. And I remember at the time, I was considering running for election to the CTS certification committee that oversees the entire CTS program. And Jeff says, you need to call up my buddy Chuck. I know him through Avixa. He is, I think you were currently the chair at the time. You were the current chair of the certification CTS committee. So I go, okay. So
For reference, what year is this?
2010.
Okay, so about 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was at NCC, so maybe 13.
13. Maybe, yeah. Okay. So yeah, because I was at Room Ready at the time. So that was 13. Yeah. Okay. So it's about 11, 12 years ago. Okay. So I call up Chuck and I said, hey, my buddy, our buddy mutual friend Jeff said I should call you. I'm thinking about running for certification committee. Just wanted to know what's involved. I think we were probably on the phone for maybe 3 hours.
Yeah.
And literally it morphed from just us talking about CTS to us just shooting the shit for like 2 hours. Right. Well, then I happened to be going to see my mother-in-law who lived in Baltimore, and like in 2 weeks, I'm like, I'll be out that way. So he drove up to Baltimore.
This is on the first call.
Yeah. So we set all this up. Then like a couple weeks later, we go and hang out, and we went to the Melting Pot. In Baltimore. And so we're with the wives.
Share a chocolate fondue pot, friends for life.
We're with the wives who we both just kind of were like, okay, you guys talk over here. And like us, we were just shooting the shit for hours, right? Literally been best friends ever since. So I mean, it's just kind of how it's done. And then I got elected to the certification committee. I took over as chair, right? 2 people after Chuck. I think it was Rich and something like that, then me. I don't remember who was between there.
Rich and then you, and then was it Luke?
Luke came after us. So then
that passion that you guys share, and then the availability and wanting to mentor. You talked about that earlier, just how important it is to have people to look up to. If you don't have that, your day-to-day is very boring and monotonous because you see somewhere where you could go and there's a path to get there, and somebody's already carved that, and it's huge to have.
We joke around and laugh about this being a very small industry because it certainly is. And you're experiencing that.
Big time.
Right. And what's really interesting is, at the time I just started teaching at Infocom at the trade show. I was teaching CTS prep, and then they got so mad when I got elected to the certification committee because they don't let you teach it anymore once you're on the steering committee, because technically you start writing the exam questions. So there has to be a firewall between the instructors and the people who write the exam.
The prep instructors.
There's a very fine line there.
Because we both kept teaching, and we were teaching design.
We
weren't teaching prep.
Right. You can't teach a prep course per ANSI and then also be a person who writes the exam. So I couldn't do both.
I would hate to be the other instructors when the choice you guys have is YouTube. Because
that wasn't the case. I taught my first CTS class with Andre.
Oh yeah.
Who was a blast. It was great. And then I taught with Jay McCardle. We taught CTS, we taught an install class. And then I ended up teaching with Tom Kerr once. And that was an experience. And we all loved Tom. So him and I became good friends. And then 1 year, they stuck him and I together on CTS prep.
That was it.
And it was the best class. There were like 3 prep classes going on. Our class was having a riot. We had a pass rate. We had like 80 people, 60, 70, 80 people, I don't remember, in the class. The pass rate was well over 90%.
Yeah.
Wow.
Every other prep class was 40% pass rate.
Are they doing a lot of preparation before they take this class, or is the class?
For sure.
Well, so it's the hard part about this class is it's completely unleveled, right? Like you can come in just getting into the industry with like 2 weeks experience, or you can come in as a 30-year vet, and you kind of have to teach to each level, right? And the goal for a prep class is to pass the exam, but it's more than that, because the prep class that they have the essentials, which teaches you like the front part of the exam. If you look at the exam guide, chapter 1 through 12 is the essentials. And then chapter 13 through 24 is like CTS prep. Well, a prep class, usually you go over all the information you had before and just to make sure you're solid on it. This is actually an educational class. So we're doing part prep, part education. But the thing that I always remember about our first time teaching. We were in the middle. We had another class on each side with like air walls, and the other instructors kept saying, "You guys need to keep it down."
Oh, we were
Our
so
class was laughing and joking and having a good time, and like we were making noise and doing all kinds of stuff. And like everyone in class, you saw the day. It's high energy. I like to get people pumped up about.
I had so much fun teaching it, and every time I teach with Chuck, I learn something myself or get a refresher of something myself. But then I remember the second year, the following year, they said, "Okay, you guys had such a successful class. We're going to double the class size, give you like 100, whatever it was, people, and we're going to put you two together." And it sold out in one day.
Yeah.
As soon as the announcement came out for the Infocom classes were available, our class sold out first day. And maybe they didn't double the size. It sold out, and then they had to add more seats.
They had to add more
just
seats
to get it. And then they gave us the larger of the classrooms. And then again, same thing, killed it.
At the time, was it still either in Vegas or Orlando?
Yeah, it always goes back and forth between the two.
Where was it at that year?
First year was Vegas. Second year was Orlando.
Which one do you guys prefer? Which location?
Oh, I don't care.
Yeah, I don't care. Yeah,
They all suck.
To me, Vegas is the spot.
Yeah, for after hours partying for sure.
So I liked Vegas because we were at the Westgate and it was a quick walk.
Yeah, the walk is better. You're
at the audiovisual capital of the world there.
Well, yeah,
outside of Times Square, but like
but you got to remember when we get there, because we're in Vegas for a week and a half, which is a lot of time. Okay, when we're there, we never walk outside. We walk from the hotel through the walkways to the convention center every day for like 4 days with all the prep and everything else.
Yeah,
we never leave. And then we leave to go eat dinner one night maybe. But that's the only experience we have getting out of there. So, I mean, Vegas is definitely cool. I love Vegas. But yeah, it's been great. And doing the instruction and us teaching together is I'd say bad news, but it actually works out really well and everybody loves it. So
Chuck, you talked about working in DC in the government. Any type of jobs you can talk about that stand out in your mind over the years that you're either proud of or cool stories?
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch, and so people get a misconception about when you're working in DC and doing government work. Like, I'm not a secret squirrel of any kind, and it's funny because some people are like, "What'd you do in the Marine Corps?" I'm like, "I was in the band." And then, people are like, "Well, you also taught weapons and you did this and that." I'm like, "I was in the band."
There's quite a bit of training though that still gets involved to be in that.
Oh yeah. So when I say, I did government work in DC, we installed TVs in the Pentagon in the Mark Center. Like, I'm not a secret squirrel. I'm not like we had a clearance just because we had to get in the building and in places that you needed a clearance to get into. I put TVs up, man. Like I put in speakers and microphones. One project we did that I take a lot of pride in is the Marine Forces Pacific Command and Control Joint Operations Center in Hawaii. And it was several months. I actually spent like 18 months in Hawaii. And it was massive. I have pictures of it before it was accredited, right? Before they did all the secret stuff in there, before they put computer feeds on monitors. So I have pictures that are actually released for publication. And I mean, it is gorgeous. There's a 36-foot diagonal screen. It was 6 projector blend at 65 feet. I mean, and I was the lead tech on this job, and any like trick you could pull out to make this job work was pulled out, and then a few tricks were learned. And it's funny. Anytime you learn a skill, it's not done easily. And anytime you learn something really good, it's usually because you got bit in the butt by something. And man, I walked out with like half of the butt I went in with, but I got so much better doing that and knowing and figuring out all these things and doing all these things. And
you learn more from failing and from hitting all that. You hear that from executives all the time. If you're successful, it's because you failed 50 times to be successful that one time. It's the same thing when you're doing this kind of work. You learn from the problems and the issues that arise.
And any of the people that I've mentioned, then Wesley Warner, Travis, the Malteses, Bill Natras, everybody's got pieces of butt laying around somewhere that they got chewed off or they lost because they learned those hard lessons. still today, Jeremy and I talk about this or that job or whatnot, or he calls me from Texas. He's like, switch. And it's still lessons learned. And that's the way you learn things, and the lessons stick.
Having that network that we have, that we've built up, and like I said, it's talk about small industry. Us teaching at Infocom is even a smaller group of all of those. I mean, it's all the key people in the audiovisual industry, and we're a tight knit group. But what's really cool about it is, you and I come up with a problem. If I don't have an answer for it, there's one group chat text away from getting the answer that I need to just about any problem or any piece of equipment I need to figure out.
Do you think the industry has enough to sustain that? Because I don't see a whole lot of younger people. When I say younger people, 23, 24.
This has been a problem for as long as we have been in the industry.
And it seems like a huge opportunity.
This makes his blood boil.
So I'm about to rant. So, okay. One of the things that I've seen in the last, and it's got to be the last 5 to 10 years, AV professionals, when I first got into the industry, knew the science of AV. Like real AV professionals knew the science of AV. You did AV, you crunched the numbers. There's no shortcutting, converging a 3-gun CRT projector. You have to do it. And when you're designing audio, you have to do it by the numbers. And now,
I can't tell you how many times he said it's math. It's a math problem.
It is.
You can't avoid it.
This is a science. AV is a science. Light waves are a science. Sound waves are a science. And the more you know about the science, the easier it is to actually make a solution that works. I see a lot of AV professionals nowadays, and they don't know the science of AV. And you can get really popular on social. You can get really good. You could be well known and still not know a feather duster from a duck's butt.
We were just talking about this in the car on the way over this morning.
Yeah, still not know a feather duster from a duck's butt about audio. And, I get people who are very, very well known in the industry. They're very popular, and they sit into a class and they're like, man, I didn't know any of that. Like, I think that's the one thing that gets me is like AV professionals, the really good AV professionals know AV. They know the science. And now that we're getting into networking, another thing we talked about today is AV is going on the network. And I fought it for a long time. I'm not an IT guy. Like AV is IT now. IT is AV. Knowing those things, it's another transport that you have to know about, just like electrons on a cable.
We're not seeing those lessons learned. We're not seeing that education. We're not seeing the people with that expertise and knowledge nowadays.
Yeah, it's getting few and far between, or it's
dangerous because some of the equipment is very forgiving to a point where you can get away with some things, and a lot of these companies are doing that. All these people can, they can get their job, they can keep their job for a while, but as soon as one little issue comes up or anything remotely complex, it's all down to science. And if you don't know it,
yeah,
you're hosed.
And just like I was talking today, the more ingrained these concepts are and that you use them. I was packing up. Okay, so one thing that Jeremy didn't probably tell you is I was getting ready to come up here, and we're getting ready to do some work and have some fun. But I was up for the last couple of days actually working on some of the things that we were doing. Literally haven't slept, and so I'm packing all my stuff up to get ready to come up here and thinking to myself, okay, I got this, I got that, I got that. I just packed this at a time, boom, boom, boom. And I'm driving like 10 years ago, I would have had to have checklists and this and that, and I would have checked everything 10 times. But now that I've done it 1,000 times, I've done it wrong 500 times, and then 501 started doing it right. I could just throw it in the bag and run. And any professional, any level of professionalism where you get to that level, and once you're an athlete, you've thrown a pitch wrong tens of thousands of times until you did it right, and then you did it wrong a few more times again, and then right, and then the amount.
I'm sitting here today.
I don't know if I go that far.
The amount of times of wrong are larger than right, and then it starts to change where the amount of times of right is larger than wrong, to the point where you get up to the level where you're at. the amount of times that you do it wrong is minute. It's like 1% of 1%. And the amount of times you do it right is almost like you almost forgot how to do it wrong. So doing AV stuff, putting systems together, getting ready to talk or just, getting ready to do a project, the amount of times I've done it and failed, I can't even count. And you work to get it like every single time it's right, every single time it's right. Or when a concept, something else comes up and it hits you, you're like, I got that. I can put these concepts together and get it. Once you get to that level, but it's reinforcement in the science. I know, like the calculation I just wrote out, the 20 log, you just write it out real quick because I've done it 1,000 times.
And you said, though, you made the point today, just because you have that in the tool bag, you got to keep using it.
Yeah.
Because if you stop, then it goes away. And
Yeah.
you were going around the room asking people interesting things about themselves. If it would have got around to me, I told this on the last podcast, I was a pretty good violinist. Now I play once a year. And you forget you remember the basics, but if you don't hone these skills, and the same goes for, the technicians and even what we're doing on a day-to-day basis, we'll do a sound system, go away from it for a month where we're, doing a lot of video stuff and conferencing, and you start to forget, oh yeah, well, that's what happened there. So I know exactly what you're talking about.
But, once you get to that level and it's bred with a lot of, desire to learn, desire to be good. You don't stay up for 2 or 3 days straight working on a problem or like working with a piece of gear because somebody's threatening your job like that. I've never, ever been worried about my job. I'm worried about, I'm not going to know this thing or I'm not going to be able to help somebody. That's what keeps me up at night is like, I don't have the capacity to help somebody else.
It's hard to find people with that kind of work ethic anymore. I mean, they're out there. They're definitely out there. We have a few that work for us. It's
Makes
great.
all the difference in the world when you can find them.
But those individuals are so rare sometimes.
Yeah.
It's just, I'm not happy about that. I wish everybody was like that. It's just not.
It's funny because you could teach people, anyone, AV. It's finding the person that has that. I found so many. Like when I was at one company, they said, we need you to recruit a couple kids, like literally kids. And I said, okay, I should go for someone between their junior and senior year, take them in that summer, train them, like pay them apprentice hourly and bring them in and I'll teach them everything they need to know for their CTS. And then when they go off for their senior year, they can go off thinking, okay, I can go to college and learn engineering or study CAD or something like that if I want to get into this. Or if I don't want college debt or go to college or, I just want to work, I can go back and get my CTS and start working at 18. And I've had so many kids do that. And they're dual certs now that teach at the show. I mean, they're good. And that's one of the great things about AV, but you just have to find that, man. Auto shops. One of the courses that's dying right in high schools, auto shop. You go to an auto shop on a Friday night and find some kid working on a 73 Chevy Cheyenne that's all beat up and they're trying to get it running, or go talk to the shop.
Guarantee they'll make a good AV tech.
Oh yeah. They're just gonna be crushing it in pretty much anything. Waiters and waitresses in the service industry, you find that good waiter or waitress, and I have stolen so many.
And we pay way better.
Yeah. Well, okay. Do you want to work 9 to 5, have good health insurance, you have 401k, like, waiter or waitress, you're dependent on tips. And if you're good, you make a good bit. And if you're getting a waiter from like one of the higher end restaurants, chances are they're making a good bit.
We had a tech that just came aboard that was he was working in a bike shop. He's in Mateo. He's in there today.
Yeah. One of our greatest techs.
Yeah, he's good.
He has such an open mind.
Yep.
He wants to do right by the customer, and he works his tail off.
So Chuck, passion for teaching, passion for education, passion for certification. It's all there. Got out of the corporate world, went to go work for Avixa themselves as a staff instructor, doing nothing but teaching and helping and writing and exams, and moved on from there. And now working for a company that solely revolves around everything that you fought and did not want to learn. That's networking. So Aurora Multimedia.
Yeah, Aurora Multimedia. And I got to say, some people at Avixa aren't they were highly upset because I did fight networking. Well, okay. So we had a team.
And now you're working at Aurora.
Yeah. We had a team and everybody kind of had their specialty. And my specialty was not networking. We had a networking person.
Yeah, you're the audio guy for sure.
Well, okay. So I taught CTS, I taught CTSI, CTSD, I taught design, I taught installation. I was the only person that taught technology management, higher ed technology management. I was the only PMP on staff. So I taught the PMP courses. I did all of the CCUMC, all of the SCOMs and all that. I traveled internationally. So I taught every single class except networking. And they're like, when are you going to teach networking? I'm like, when are the other guys going to teach tech management? Like, that's not the question. So I kind of fought it because like I can do everything, but I want to spread the butter out on the bread. Right. So then when I was the last Mohican standing, it kind of came to pass of like, I got to teach networking. I didn't want to do it. So then I go to Aurora. Now I talked to Paul when I first got there, and Paul Harris has been quite possibly the best boss ever. I don't say that just as like, hey, he's going to hear this. Like, he's a phenomenal boss. I say this all the time because he lets me do my job. But in the very beginning, I said, I don't know networking. He said, okay, take some time to learn. And he gave me some time, and he said, sit in on some of the service calls, see what the problems are, take some time, take some classes, here's some gear, learn the gear. And again, being the person that I don't know this.
But you weren't necessarily hired to be a networking guy. It was more education and client, client working with clients, things like that. It morphed into network troubleshooting and
so to educate people on the box.
Yes, you have to know. That's why you had to learn it.
Yeah, I kind of had to learn it. And so I took this deep dive into networking, and I started sitting in on customer service calls, which I actually kind of enjoy now because, I like to help people. I like to be there for people. And when the phone rings and I know the gear well enough. Like, I've taken calls while I'm driving in the car, no gear, no computer in front of me. And I'm just like, okay, open this up, do that. Oh, this port's blocked up, try and get this undone, or push edit here, right click on this, go to this. I feel I feel like behind the console, I feel like I'm in my niche. In front of the classroom, I feel like I'm in my niche. I didn't feel like I was in my niche behind a switch, and now I do. I've learned enough. Like, I feel like I can be effective and help people again. And so now we're teaching AV over IP courses, and I have the viewpoint of, I didn't know this a year ago. What are the things that tripped me up when I first started doing this? And now,
well, that makes you a better instructor because you understand what trips up other people then, and how did you learn from that? How can I teach that to other people, even my guys that are out in the other room there? How are we going to teach them? So, it's interesting. Now you're still doing the teaching thing. You still love educating. We're still volunteering. We're still. Heck, you and I started a consulting company around education consulting, right? Because myself, I created classes for Columbia College. We both sat on the Columbia College board for curriculum development together. It's something we enjoy doing. And then, we just started our consulting thing because we said, why aren't we making money off of this?
I think the business plan started off as, we need money. We need spending money for the bars at ISC and InfoComm.
When we're at ISC and InfoComm. That's literally why we started the business. So we own a business together, just doing education consulting and whatnot, and it's just for spending money. That's it.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it is. I just told him this morning I wanted to buy a company Tesla. So
it's a write-off.
My accountant did not agree with that necessarily when I called him last week.
You got to get over the weight limit. There's a weight limit.
Well, it's with those batteries, you're over the weight limit. Yeah, you're over the weight limit on that thing, and it's still 1,100 horsepower, 0 to 60 in 1.9 seconds. It's coming, baby. But he doesn't want me to buy an electric car, so I don't know. But yeah, so it's we're enjoying that. That's a lot of fun. We've got a couple of really high end good clients there. But yeah, it's you got quite the history, and man, I can't tell you how much. We have to have the wolf pack as it is. Our main group chat is myself, Chuck, Justin Watts from Apple, who and
Big dogs.
Luke Jordan down at EA in Dallas. Together, we put on the AV Roki party that'll happen at InfoComm every year. So anybody who's listening, you're welcome to come. Although if you don't get there early enough,
get there early.
There has been a wait list that's very long and wrapped
around the
block.
door.
I couldn't believe that.
That was my first
It
experience.
started with
Really?
like 10 people.
You got to understand, like I'm taking Jeremy's like, oh yeah, we're having karaoke. And I'm like, okay, fine. Like whatever. It'll just be a whatever.
No,
night.
Chuck and I, we're all throwing a party. You got to come, man.
And I get in there and I'm like, oh my goodness, there's
I'm not gonna
all
lie.
of the people that are the who's who are in there and then people outside. It was nuts.
It's literally the who's who of AV. I'm talking all the manufacturing CEOs, all the people who know everything that we've been talking, all the names we've dropped on this podcast. Everybody is there. And the line, half of them were still waiting in line to get in. That was the craziest year we've ever experienced.
Yeah, they had like a velvet rope, and I'm like, "What's going on?" They're like, "We packed the bar." I'm like, "Oh, there's a line," and somebody came in and goes, "Yeah, the line's about halfway down the block." Are you kidding me?
It was pretty
People
awesome.
were still waiting in the line. Like I see that line. I'm down at
No, they were
Caesars
waiting.
doing something else. You know what I mean? Like
We had the CEO of one of our major manufacturers waiting in the line, and I remember screaming at the bouncer, "You need to let him in right now. He's probably going to pick up the tab." We have not gone so far as to get corporate sponsorship yet, although I think that's going to be coming very soon because the bar tabs are getting a little.
yeah, I was going to say
pricey.
Vegas prices are skyrocketing. You're going to need some sponsorship in there.
But that's our consulting company, help pay for that kind of stuff. So it's a good time. But we had probably 300 people through the door easily that time. So that's coming up again. We were just discussing how we needed to start marketing that again this year.
Yeah,
Get the information out. We've been slacking a little bit on that. So that's
You still got a few months. You're all right.
We will do the AV Roki Wolfpack podcast coming up soon. I think we're going to move that from Tim Albright's platform to ours. Sorry, Tim.
Am I going to get booted out of the seat when the wolf pack gets together?
Well, we're going to have to do that one remote because there's no way we're getting Luke to. His wife does not allow him to go anywhere with Chuck or Justin or myself anymore.
I was privy to see him at a conference one-on-one down in where were we at? Vegas? I can't remember where we were.
Well, he gets to go places, just not with us
Just not with us anymore.
anymore.
After the last ordeal, his wife will never allow him out of the house
He's
ever
a
again.
character after 5 p.m. We'll leave it at that.
Well, that is for sure. But the wife is not a fan. That's all. Well, she likes us individually, not together.
Don't blame her at all.
It's all dangerous, all downhill. Okay, Chuck, we could go on for hours. We will have you back on again, my friend. We have to get back to work. It's already that time. So, let's go back to work. And thanks for coming on, man. Appreciate it. Thanks for driving from Virginia just to do the podcast.
The legend.
I wish that was
The legend was here.
All right, awesome. The one and only Chuck Espinzoa. All right, thanks everybody. Thanks for listening.